Hi, this is Paul with PJM Incorporated. I know many of you know that recently I wrote and had a book published called The Business of Home Inspection. And I've been on several podcasts and I've been interviewed by several people. And the question that comes up is, why did we write the book? I think the number one reason that I decided to write this book was because I think that in our industry, in the home inspection industry, there's a lack of good communication. I think buyers, sellers, and real estate agents alike would probably feel a whole lot better if they had somebody competent, but somebody that also can communicate the results in a way that everybody understands and answer questions that are important to be answered to help with their transaction. If they're the buyer, they want to know how important something is, how much it might cost to get fixed, how it actually gets repaired, and whether or not it's major, minor, or somewhere in the middle. So when I wrote this book, I didn't anticipate some of the things that happened. And one of the things that happened that was pretty cool was I got the endorsement of Nick Romico from Internachi. Now, I'm a certified master inspector and a member of Internachi, and I have been so for quite some time. I see value in what Internachi brings to the table. They're a wealth of information and education that home inspectors would not have access to otherwise. They're a great organization, but to get that endorsement was a moment of pride for me because I really want to run with my idea of trying to teach people in my market or in our market and in whatever market they come from, maybe some of the things that they can learn from that we did that could maybe help them in their business, but to better the industry as a whole, to benefit buyers, to benefit sellers, to benefit real estate agents. Because I don't think anybody benefits in any way, shape, or form with someone who maybe does a great inspection, but doesn't have the ability to articulate the results or communicate the results in ways that people understand. And I think if you're looking at our inspection as a whole, it's understandable why some guys do inspections one way and other guys do them another way. It's because it's an industry in transition. So I was fortunate enough to get into this industry at a time where it was really about to take off back in 2004, late 2004. Now, I had a couple of mentors that helped me along, and these guys were in the business quite some time before I met them. Now, I've watched what they've taught me, and I've watched what I've learned, and I've watched what's happened over the last almost 20 years. And I can tell you dramatic shifts in the way that the inspection is approached, the way the report writing is done. And it also has gone to a place where it makes it very confusing. I'll tell you why. Because now, more than ever, most home inspectors are getting with home inspection software programs. And the reports that are generated, they do look very professional. And that's a fact. And in some cases, those reports are not only done professionally and look professional, but they were done by a professional who did an outstanding job. But what really is a challenge is sometimes the inspector that is inspecting the property is maybe less than qualified or not as qualified, and he's generating a report that looks satisfactory or looks professional, but until you read it and find out what's in it, you don't really understand whether or not it was done properly or not. And what I mean by that is if if you have a question and you go to look for the answer in that report, are you going to find it? If you have a question and you can't find the answer in that report and you call that inspector, will he be able to answer it? If you have a problem and you can't find the answer in the report and you can't get a hold of the inspector, or even worse, you get a hold of the inspector and the inspector can't articulate what it is he's trying to convey to you, these are all recipes for disaster because, as we all know, a real estate transaction, time is sensitive, time is of the essence. So, accurate information has to be recorded, and the person who does the work has to put together a professional document that's reliable and accurate and easy to understand, but then also has to be made available for follow-up. Because if there is a necessity for clarification, that's an important thing that has to happen after the job is done. So I put this book out because I want to play a part in improving an industry where I think in this particular arena, there is room for improvement. So one of the things that I have that I think is important is two things actually. One, home inspectors have to inspect like an inspector, but they have to think like a contractor, and I'll tell you why. because you have to know where your boundaries are as a home inspector, but you also have to know when you report on something, what possible repair options there are to how to fix something, how much that might cost. Because believe me, when I tell you in a transaction, people will be relying on you and accurate information. And they'll need you to step up and to answer questions like that. And I understand the serious disconnect between the standards of practice that is set forth in the industry, not only nationally, but state by state, versus what people's expectations are. But if you're trying to be successful at running a business and you're trying to be successful at helping others be successful in their business, and you're trying to be successful at doing the best job you can for that buyer that or that seller that you work for, you can't not do things outside the standard of practice. It's just unrealistic to do that because you're going to probably not probably not last very long in business doing that, because your answer to everything will be, I'm sorry, it's outside the scope of the standards of practice, or I'm sorry, it's outside the scope of what I do. And in some cases maybe that'll have some merit, but the majority of the time it's going to kill you because people are depending on you. They trust you. Once you gain somebody's trust, they're going to rely on you. And if they rely on you, they're going to depend greatly on what type of job you do, what type of report you put out there, and what type of conversation can be had, whether one-on-one or a conference call, that you'll be able to be able to assist in moving forward. So the motivation behind this book was I wanted to try and add to an industry, I think, in an area where I could be helpful. And one of the things that I put out there in my book is think like a contractor. Inspect like an inspector, think like a contractor. You have to understand how things are repaired. One of the biggest problems in our industry are home inspectors that do not understand how to repair problems. That's a problem because it's going to actually be a shortcoming that the inspector has until he learns maybe a little bit more. So like find your weak areas wherever they are, and learn how to articulate what possible repair options might be considered by a contractor. This is going to be helpful for you as the inspector because your credibility is at stake. It's going to be tremendously helpful to the buyer or the seller that's relying on you as a professional to give them the information they need. And third, it's going to be incredibly important for the real estate professionals that are working their hardest to try and get the buyer or the seller the property transaction done to best serve their client. So if you approach your job with honesty and integrity and you're competent, I'd like to say it ends there, but it doesn't. You need to be able to communicate well. You need to have a broad understanding of the many different repairs that might come up in an inspection, and you need to be available not only to generate a professional report, but you need to be available to be able to have a conversation later regarding the results in that report, and to be available to expand on the possible repair options and maybe possible expense discussions that have to happen after that report is generated and sent out to everyone. So this is Paul with PJM Incorporated. I've taken about maybe 10 minutes of your time, and I'm grateful for that 10 minutes. But if you have an opportunity, if you're a home inspector, consider purchasing my book and reading it. It's not a masterpiece by any means. I'm not claiming it to be. What I'm claiming to do here is give you input that I think could help you in your business. And if you read it and you decide there's no place for it in your methodology, that's fine. You've lost nothing. But you might find some things in there that you may want to consider using. And real estate agents, listen, if you're interviewing home inspectors, especially if you're a new realtor in the business, please read this book. It'll kind of give you an idea of maybe who you want to be interviewing, like, or what you're looking for in a home inspector. And everybody, please understand that I'll be making myself available for conversations about basically anybody who wants to make a phone call, whatever question you may have. I'll be as helpful as I possibly can. This is Paul with PJM Incorporated. I'm the author of the new book, The Business of Home Inspection. It's available on Inspector Outlet, the InterNACHI site, and I hope that you'll give it a look, give it some serious consideration. And there is a discount in there for InterNACHI members. So guys, if you're interested in reading what's in this book, please go to Inspector Outlet and get yourself a copy. Thank you for all the time you gave me, guys. Have a great day.